Hi there, welcome to another edition of 411 Pop Culture. This is your host, Justin Steele. Today we are going to be talking about Halloween and Suspiria, both movies released in October of 2018, and both movies have their original source material based on horror from the late 1970s. Halloween being the new Halloween 2 of the series based on John Carpenter's Halloween of 1978, and Suspiria, a remake or revision or homage or however you want to call it, a cover version now of the original Suspiria based on Dario Argento's 1977 masterpiece. And both movies were released in October of 2018 and very different styles, but it's interesting because they both came from the 70s. The new Halloween movie, though, is more akin to the satisfaction of having a cheeseburger and fries. The new Suspiria movie is more like having a four-course dinner that you enjoy, but it leaves you very, very full afterwards and a bit exhausted, and you might feel a little sick as well. Halloween was released earlier in October, written by Danny McBride and Jeff Fradley, directed by David Gordon Green, who has taken very much the style of John Carpenter, the long wide shots, the sort of cinematography, John Carpenter's The Fog, even Escape from New York, especially Halloween, just have those really long sweeping shots where even if there's not much detail in the background, you're still kind of looking at it, you're still kind of wondering, what's going to happen, what's going to fill that space, and it does create a certain atmosphere. And I feel like most of the directors, if not all the directors, after the original Halloween always said, hey, we're going back to the roots of the series, and this one is as scary as the first. And I feel like that's just not true. I feel like Halloween 2, even the original Halloween 2, was very much a product of 80s slashers. First 4 and 5 were they had the iconic villain bringing back Michael Myers. Halloween H2O was a product of Scream at the time, having that same kind of alternative rock background, kids with a heightened sense of dialogue that were self-aware of the kind of world they lived in and the kind of movies that they watched. And they really weren't like looking at a John Carpenter movie. Obviously, Halloween 2 had the closest because he was involved, but it's still the kill count was higher. The ways the kills happened in general were the product of an 80s slasher. I do feel like Halloween 2018 was the closest to actually achieving that goal. David Gordon Green said, we want to go back to the original, just like every other director, and I feel like he did. He achieved that in many, many ways. It's still, but it's fresh. It is a fresh look. It's as if, John Carpenter was in his 20s again, making this movie in 2018, as opposed to 1978. They succeeded. It's good. Bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis was amazing, an amazing choice, brilliant. And as a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, I watched her, I think the first time I really ever saw her was in My Girl. I was a big fan of My Girl and My Girl 2, and I think I was about 10 years old when I watched those. And True Lies, when it came out, just loved her as Helen Tasker. And so when I saw the original Halloween, I knew she was in it. We watched it in a TV productions class in high school, which was an odd movie to watch, I guess, other than the tribute to John Carpenter. But, 14-year-olds seeing it. Now, I grew up with horror movies. I have two older brothers, and that's what we watched. But I saw Jamie Lee Curtis in it, and I was like, oh, I don't want anything to happen to her. And she obviously survived the first one. And I think the first time I saw the original Halloween 2 was a TV broadcast. And in it, it continued on the story of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. I was like, oh, there's going to be more with her in it. I wasn't expecting this. And I thought it was scary. I loved it. I'm a big fan of the original Halloween 2. So I did have a few issues with them changing the timeline again, and I think it's a very bold choice for them because most of the films in the Halloween series do have a new timeline, but it always keeps the general lore that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are brother-sister. However, if they had continued that on, it really would have just been Halloween H2O all over again. Jamie Lee Curtis coming back. There's different ways I'm sure they could have utilized the brother-sister relationship as the sort of centerpiece. However, I think it ultimately would have been the same result. I guess the same result as Halloween Resurrection, which in my opinion just doesn't exist in the series. Obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic in that as well, and it does have a moment in that introduction scene, the opening scene. However, when I show people or when I watch it, I end right at H2O. I think that's a fantastic end to that timeline because you do go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, H2O Resurrection, Rob Zombie 1, 2, and then part 3 slides in there. And now we've started the timeline again with 1, and then now Halloween 2018. And I think it was a good idea that they took out the brother-sister relationship. It just added something, a new flavor to it. And Jamie Lee Curtis, coming back to the movie was a magnificent miracle, wonderful choice. And she is sensational in it. She has played Laurie as a resourceful babysitter, a nervous, terrified alcoholic, and now as this sort of prepared survivalist ready to take on Michael Myers, where as Carrie Tate in H2O, she was pill popping, alcohol chugging, nervously knowing that he was going to come for her one day, but not knowing when and anticipating it. And this Laurie very much is, I'm getting impatient. Come for me. Like, let's make this happen. Let's dance. And so it was a great performance. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, I wouldn't say she's an underrated actress, but I would say that, she's of that. I think she's a little younger than Meryl Streep, but I think, Meryl Streep kind of gets of that generation, Jodie Foster, they all get that sort of like extra bit of acclaim or acknowledgement. I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis does as much, and I think she should. I've always thought that she should. All the performances, the Heidi Chronicles, that's something to definitely see her in. A Fish Called Wanda, of course. Just, it keeps going. Even her Disney stuff like Freaky Friday. Jamie Lee Curtis coming back was great. Was great, great, great. Which, though, brings me to one of the only few flaws that I did find in the new Halloween movie, which was the disinclusion of this chick right here, Danielle Harris. She should have been a part of it. She wanted to be a part of it, and I think the way that they did the finale, I won't give away any spoilers, although with the $220 million box office, I don't think there's many people out there who have not seen it yet. But, the way they do the finale, it is definitely very acknowledgement of the women of the horror series, of horror in general and Hollywood right now. And it is a very grandmother, mother, daughter moment. And I think that it would have had an extra emotional punch if Danielle Harris had been a part of that scene. But I do hope, because obviously a sequel is going to occur, I do hope that they do bring Danielle Harris back. And I think that would be the little extra gimmick to the movie. I've always wanted to see Danielle Harris as Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, and I've always wanted them to be fighting Michael Myers. However, I do think now that this whole thing is played out, that she should be maybe, the original series had Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd, who always had the potential to be evil. That was kind of her arc. Well, maybe make her evil then, in terms of Michael's got to survive into the next movie. Maybe she's the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of Dr. Loomis, and maybe she's the one that helps Michael escape. And at the end of the new Halloween movie, again, we don't know that happens at all. We don't know if he survives or what happens. No spoilers. But it is a Halloween movie, and it's been said many times he can't ever really be killed off, just like Freddy, just like Jason. So it's not a real spoiler, okay? But it would be great if she was able to be utilized to come back. That could be the way to do it. and she should be because she's, Danielle Harris is the princess of the series compared to Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the Scream Queen. And if we adjust all these timelines for Jamie Lee Curtis, let's adjust this one for Danielle Harris and let her be a part of the series too. Not having Danielle Harris in the movie though is more about a fan reaction, a fan criticism. But overall, the movie was really good. Obviously, it's having an amazing reaction and an amazing box office. The only two criticisms I really had of the film were the play out of the new Doctor, as Laurie Strode christened him the new Dr. Loomis. Dr. Sartain, I think his name is. I didn't really care for that arc. I thought it was belonging in another movie. I guess it was a sort of criticism about those who govern the insane and how they may have some psychological issues themselves. I thought it played out mostly too as a convenient escape for a main character. There's no reason why he would have let this character live, especially the way it was set up. So I don't know, I thought it was just a little odd placement in the movie. Also, I thought the film focused on the wrong teenagers. I thought Vicky was a really interesting character. When I watched the trailer, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a stereotypical teenage girl type. I was really connected to her. I thought she was really good, and the little boy that she had the dynamic with, I thought he was really funny. I wish that Allison had been more with that group as opposed to this sort of contrived love triangle that appeared. I wasn't really interested in it. I thought it was kind of dull. And I would have liked to have seen, as in the original, the girls kind of talked about the boys, but we didn't really see them otherwise than Bob. And it was sort of the girls' dynamic and leading to that. And in this one, I think it would have been nice if Allison and Vicky were kind of together hanging out, and then Michael showed up, and then that's why she took off running. And I thought it would have been a more interesting movie in that respect. Overall, though, I thought it was very well done. I thought there were a lot of moments that were just fantastic, homages to a bunch of the films, not just the first one. Although the finale shot of the original was redone and remixed in a new way that I thought was fantastic. Like I said, everything with Jamie Lee Curtis and even more of her would have been wonderful. I enjoyed the podcasters, the English podcasters. When I talked to people about this movie, they seem to have not cared about them too much. I thought they were fine, and I thought that their scene was very frightening. It would have been nice people. I don't know. There's always that guy in the audience that has to laugh at all the death scenes and stuff like that. It's so stereotypical, and I just stop it, please. Stop being that guy that laughs in the theater because there's somebody dead on the wall. What's wrong with you? I mean, there's something wrong with you. And because I couldn't tell, I write reviews for Wicked Horror, and I'm trying to establish, am I really scared right now because it's taking me out of this? Because is it silly and I'm not seeing something? And I don't think it was. I thought that the death scenes were done well and frightening. I thought the atmosphere was good. And so to be kind of taken out of it because there's some guy trying to impress the girl that he's with is just silly. So overall, though, I thought it was a really well done movie and was very pleased. Very different than what Suspiria was. Suspiria was related to more Black Swan, I would say, than the original Suspiria, even the way it was filmed. Certain moments, anyway. The style of it, the color palette with these sort of muted, wintry colors, I thought was very similar. Although Suspiria is what would happen if Suspiria was a witch that gutted Black Swan open and watched her guts everywhere, and then she danced around naked. That is what Suspiria is. And it was intense. You feel this huge range of emotions, and you are exhausted by the end of it, but in a good way. I mean, the audience, when we were done, sat there at the credits, and there was nothing really else to see, but I think we all just kind of didn't know what to do. And I feel like Halloween is getting this huge box office success, but they also open in at least 2,000 or 3,000 theaters. And Suspiria has had this elongated gestation period before it's even been released. And the nearest theater I could see it at was about 45 minutes away from my house, whereas Halloween, there's one a minute from my house, 5 minutes from my house, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and there's at least 7 showings at each of those theaters. It's strange to me that Suspiria is getting such a limited, small release, and it's gonna in no way do the profit margin that Halloween is going to do, and I don't understand that. I don't know what the behind the scenes were. The movie was filmed in 2016. I think it was ready in 2017, and it's only now being released in the fall of 2018. Tilda Swinton is amazing in it. She is always amazing. I haven't seen one thing where I'm not like, oh, she is crazy good and crazy fascinating, and she draws you in. She is this spider, deceitful, weaving you into her web, and you know that she is going to suck out your blood, but you're still enthralled by her, and you're like, how did I get into this web? But how am I not gonna not be in this web because I'm fascinated? And she is a chameleon. I did not know the little publicity that occurred where people, I guess she plays, there's another storyline that goes throughout the movie with this older gentleman. His name is Joseph, and it's played by Tilda Swinton. And I guess she was asked about that, and they denied it at first. And she says she's not playing him; she's playing the actor playing him, which I think is kind of funny and very Tilda Swinton-y. But she was just somebody to watch in this movie, and fascinating, and the range of emotions, particularly the main character she plays is Madame Blanc, and she is fascinating. Even as she's just eating chicken, she's chain smoking cigarettes. You're just like, you can't take your eyes off of her. Dakota Johnson was wonderful as the new Susie Bannion, very different than the original Susie, played by Jessica Harper. Jessica Harper's interpretation was more of a sophisticated girl, young woman coming into this academy. You know very little about her, whereas the Dakota Johnson Susie, you learn about her childhood. You learn a little bit about how she got there, the stress of it. There's Dario Argento movies are very much not about the plot. They are what they make. They're supposed to make you feel. It's like looking at a moving piece of art. The colors, the music, they all play an integral part. I tell people all the time when I show them a Dario Argento movie, I'm like, we're not watching this for like the story. This isn't about the journey of Susie. This isn't even about witchcraft. It's all these arbitrary ideas that are lumped together to make you feel a certain way. And the original one is full of these pop technicolor colors that just they evoke certain reactions from you. And Luca Guadagnino, who I know I'm not pronouncing that right. There's no possible way, but I apologize, but that's the best I can do. And he chose a very different color palette for this movie, and it's effective in its way. It gives you definitely it brings your emotional level down, whereas Dario Argento's, it is really like giving you a visceral reaction. But his movies Argento's movies are like watching a nightmare come to life on the screen, and you finish the movie and it's like waking up from a nightmare where you're kind of. And this movie, it was like weighted down emotion, and I think people are going to love it or they're going to hate it. I think that there's images in it that you're never going to see anywhere else, and it's actually a pretty amazing movie. I had to figure out what I felt about the movie, and usually I know pretty well, like I'm like, oh, okay, I love that movie, or it wasn't for me. And this movie, I was like, do I like this? Did I like this movie? And I did. I like what it made me feel in terms of it made me feel. It made me feel repulsion. It made me feel inspired. It made me feel depressed. But it made me feel. And I think that's what a good movie is supposed to do, one way or the other, or at least an interesting movie. And again, I don't think that Suspiria is going to get the same attention that Halloween did, although I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden you find at the Academy Awards this year Tilda Swinton being nominated because she was fascinating. Dakota Johnson was great too. All the supporting characters, they came together in this way that you wanted to see what each and every single one of them were doing. at every time, and your eyes almost didn't know where to look on the screen because you're like, wait, what is happening here? Oh, now what's happening there? You could actually feel this sort of hierarchy between the students and the teachers at the academy, and they all played their parts. And even though they kind of clearly were working towards a similar goal, they did all have their little nuances. Sarah, played by Mia Goth, was very interesting, very different than the original Sarah, who I think is Stephanie Cassini. She was very overtly paranoid, and this Sarah was worried about her friend Patricia, and she was worried about her, but she definitely was loyal to the academy and didn't want to hear anything bad about it. She gradually came around to realizing that something was off. And Chloe Grace Moretz was very brilliant in her role, very effective. You know, she was heartbreaking and blunt in a way that you were shocked and stunned, and you felt for this girl who was clearly suffering from madness. So it was just a good movie. It was a powerful movie. Whether you like that or you hate it, though, because I do think it's going to be very polarizing. Just people are going to react to it like that, though, where they're going to be like, this is something different. This is something to watch. And I think it is. So, again, like I said earlier, Halloween is like getting that cheeseburger and fries satisfaction. Suspiria is kind of something you have to be more in the mood for, like a four-course meal. You know, you're going for it and you're feeling it. It achieves a certain different satiation to your palate, and at the end of it, you're going to feel a little overwhelmed and satisfied. So those are the two. Those were the two movies this past couple years I've been waiting for. I love the Halloween series. I'm a dedicated fan. I have been since I was 14 years old. Suspiria, the original by Dario Argento, I came into when in my mid 20s. I don't know how I didn't see it for so long, but I saw it at the right time for me, and I thought it was just fantastic. And I was pleased with the update. It was different than I expected. There was a plot twist in it that I don't want to say I didn't see coming, because I obviously have preconceived notions going into it, but there was a sort of plot twist coming that I was kind of hoping wouldn't. So I'm conflicted about that, but the finale itself is something to see. There's also another scene with the character of Olga that's going to be remembered by audiences for the grotesque nature that it plays out. It's going to be the scene that people will be talking about. So comment, like, subscribe, but comment. Let me know. Did you enjoy Suspiria? Did you enjoy Halloween? Did you hate them? Have you disagreed with me? I am interested in your opinions and I want to know. Thank you for watching another edition of 411 Pop Culture. This is real people talking about really everything. Thank you. Where's your belly? Where's your little belly? There it is.